Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, the largest of 3 colony ships that had crossed the dark gulf of interstellar space. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered like scattered diamonds, cold, eternal, and utterly indifferent to the fragile lives that drifted among them. It had been 3 months since the colonists first arrived in this remote star system. 3 months since humanity took its first true step beyond the solar system. Below them, on the world the settlers had named Haven, 2,000 men, women, and children were building something new. A civilization not bound to Earth, but born from it, its blue oceans and green continents promising a future written in the language of survival and hope. The journey from Earth had taken 18 months. 18 months of hardship, cramped quarters, and uncertainty. And yet, when they first saw Haven's seas glimmering in the light of a new star, it had felt worth it. History had shifted. Humanity was no longer confined to one fragile cradle. They had planted their flag among the stars. And then the signal came. A soft, almost polite beep echoed from the communications console. Lieutenant Amy Foster turned, her face marked with something Morrison had never seen in her expression before, unease. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission," she said. "Multiple frequencies. Strong. Directed at us." Morrison crossed the bridge and looked at her screens. Strange, pulsing patterns of light and sound filled the monitors, rhythms, structures, not random noise. The shape of intelligence. But not human intelligence. "Can you decode it?" For long minutes, the bridge crew watched in silence as Foster worked, her fingers gliding across the console. The ship's computers strained to make sense of the alien data. At last, symbols resolved into words, harsh and cold, projected on the main viewing screen. Unknown species occupying Zapirian territorial space. You have established illegal settlements in Star System 749, a protected zone. By ancient right and galactic law, the Zapirian Empire claims dominion over all worlds in this sector. You have 7 standard days to evacuate. Failure to comply will result in military action. The Zapirian Empire does not negotiate with primitives. The bridge fell silent. They were not alone. And worse, they had built their first colony in someone else's empire. Dr. Lisa Hayes, the expedition's chief scientist, entered just as the message ended. She had been analyzing Haven's soil samples, but the grave expressions of the crew told her this was no ordinary update. Morrison replayed the transmission. She listened intently, eyes narrowing. "This is extraordinary," she whispered. "The mathematical complexity of the signal, their communication system is decades, maybe centuries, ahead of us. They've mastered faster-than-light messaging. That alone puts them 50 years ahead of anything we've achieved." Morrison asked the question hanging over every soul aboard. "Advanced enough to destroy us?" Hayes hesitated, then nodded. "If their weapons match their communication, yes. Severely advanced. We wouldn't stand a chance." The message hadn't been a greeting. It hadn't been curiosity. It had been an ultimatum. Humanity's first encounter with alien intelligence had arrived not as a whisper of wonder, but as a demand for surrender. A council of senior staff gathered in the New Horizons conference chamber. The air was heavy, charged with the weight of history. Commander Rex Taylor, tactical officer, laid out the hard truth. "Our ships, the New Horizon, the Pioneer, and the Frontier, were built for colonization. Mining gear, farming tools, industrial lasers. Not war. We have 12 fighters, mostly training craft, and a handful of repurposed defense systems. 8,000 colonists, and not nearly enough firepower." Engineer Maya Johnson leaned forward, her voice sharp with insight. "The Zapirians used quantum entanglement for that transmission. Real-time, instantaneous communication across light years. That means their science isn't theoretical like ours. It's weaponized. And if they've applied that same mastery to shields, propulsion, or weaponry, then we can't even imagine the scale of what we're up against. The room was quiet. Every person at that table had volunteered to leave Earth, to carve a fragile foothold in the unknown. None of them had expected humanity's first interstellar confrontation to come so soon. What are our options? Morrison finally asked. Taylor spoke bluntly. Comply. Evacuate. Abandon haven, retreat, survive to try again elsewhere. Lieutenant Foster frowned. 18 months back to Earth with dwindling supplies. And no guarantee another habitable world exists. That's not survival. That's slow extinction. Dr. Hayes leaned forward, her scientific instincts gnawing at the edges of the problem. Listen carefully to their words. They call us primitive. They invoke galactic law. That suggests they've used this exact strategy before: intimidation, legalistic dominance, an empire maintained by fear. They may not expect resistance. They may not even understand it. You're saying they're bullies, Morrison said. Hayes nodded. Exactly. And like all bullies, they expect immediate submission. Morrison rose and walked to the viewport. Haven spun below, oceans glittering, continents alive with the lights of new settlements. Thousands of human beings lived there now, building farms, raising children, writing the first chapter of humanity's life among the stars. Could he really abandon them? No, Morrison said finally, his voice steady. We do not run. We do not abandon Haven. Not now, not ever. He turned back to his officers. Send word to Earth. Tell them everything. Request aid, if they can give it. But until help arrives, we prepare to stand. Even if we stand alone. Taylor's jaw tightened. Captain, with respect, we cannot defeat them. It would be suicide. Maybe, Morrison said quietly. But survival isn't only about firepower. It's about will. About showing these Zapirians that humanity is not a species that kneels. They may call us primitive, but they don't know us yet. Not truly. Back on Earth, Admiral Kyle Brooks read Morrison's transmission with grim attention. The Defense Council chamber fell silent as the ultimatum was read aloud. Humanity had always speculated about first contact. But this was no hopeful meeting of equals. It was a declaration of war against their existence. We're not alone, General Patricia Williams said flatly. And the first to find us wants our extinction. The council debated fiercely. Some demanded evacuation. Others warned that surrender now would guarantee oppression forever. Secretary of Defense Maria Santos voiced the harsh truth. Our fleets are cargo haulers and patrol craft. Nothing more. Against a galactic empire, we stand no chance. Admiral Brooks leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. Perhaps. But there is one possibility. One ship. One project. Experimental. Dangerous. But it may be the only chance we have. He opened a secure channel and revealed the classified blueprints for Project Thunder Soul, a warship unlike any humanity had ever dared to build. And in that moment, humanity's fight for survival truly began. Admiral Kyle Brooks stood before the Defense Council, the room lit only by the pale glow of the secure holodisplay. On its surface rotated the blueprint of a ship unlike any other. Sleek, angular, armored with layered composites Earth's industries had never before mass-produced. A vessel built not to colonize, not to explore, but to fight. Project Thunder Soul, Brooks said, his voice steady, though the weight of centuries pressed on his shoulders. Our first true warship. Conceived in secret, designed as a last resort. Faster than light capable, armed with rail cannons, plasma lances, and experimental shielding. It is not yet complete. But if the Zapirian Empire forces our hand, this ship may be humanity's only chance. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. Until now, Earth's ambitions had been survival, not conquest. Humanity's interstellar dreams had always carried the quiet assumption that if other life existed, it would greet them as fellow travelers. That illusion had shattered with a single transmission. General Williams broke the silence. One ship against an empire. You're asking us to wager humanity's survival on an untested design. Brooks nodded. Yes. Because the alternative is surrender. Construction began in orbit above Mars, in the sprawling yards that had once been devoted to colony vessels. Every resource Earth could spare was poured into the frame of Thunder Soul. Titanium from Luna, fusion cores from Mercury, even rare isotopes mined from asteroids in the belt. The project consumed them all. For 18 months, welders, engineers, and scientists worked without rest. There was no time for perfection. Only time for necessity. Humanity had only months before the Zapirians might return to enforce their ultimatum. At last, the ship was complete. 2 kilometers of steel and fire, bristling with weapons. A spear hurled into the dark. And with the ship came a captain. His name was Daniel Parker, a career officer who had once commanded deep space patrols along the edge of the Kuiper Belt. He was not the most decorated, nor the most charismatic, but he was calm where others panicked, stubborn where others yielded. Above all, he carried the one quality humanity needed most, conviction. When Parker first set foot on Thunder Soul's command deck, he ran his hand across the rail of the captain's chair. He did not see a warship. He saw a burden. A responsibility. Every life aboard, every colonist on Haven, every soul back on Earth, all of them would depend on this fragile spear of metal and fire. His first words to the crew were not ones of bravado, but of clarity. We are not saviors. We are not conquerors. We are guardians. Our mission is simple: reach Haven, defend our people, and survive. Nothing more. Nothing less. The crew responded not with cheers, but with silent nods. They understood. The galaxy was no longer a dream. It was a battlefield. The journey to Haven was perilous. Thunder Soul's engines were untested, its systems experimental. When the ship engaged its new Alcubierre drive for the first time, space itself seemed to tear open. The crew felt their stomachs twist, reality bending around them. But then, in an instant, stars shifted. Light years fell away. The impossible had become possible. During the long voyage, Parker often walked the observation decks. Alone, he stared into the endless dark. He thought of the Zapirians, this empire that claimed dominion over countless worlds. How many civilizations had they crushed beneath the weight of galactic law? How many voices had been silenced before they could sing? For humanity, there was no choice. They would not kneel. Weeks into the journey, Thunder Soul intercepted fragments of Zapirian transmissions. They were not directed at Earth or Haven, but at other outposts across the stars. Each message was the same: orders, decrees, ultimatums. The Empire's voice was cold, bureaucratic, and absolute. There was no curiosity in their words. No wonder. Only control. Dr. Hayes, who had transferred from New Horizon to serve as Thunder Soul's chief scientific officer, listened with growing unease. "They're not exploring," she said one evening on the bridge. "They're administering. Entire star systems reduced to lines of data. It's not expansion, it's maintenance. The galaxy, to them, is a ledger. And we are an entry they would rather erase." Her words lingered in Parker's mind. Humanity's spirit had always been restless, driven by curiosity, art, and struggle. But the Zapirians seemed to represent the opposite: the death of imagination, the reduction of life to rules and dominion. As Thunder Soul neared Haven, tension rippled through the crew. They knew the Zapirians would return soon. Perhaps with a fleet. Perhaps with only a single vessel, though even one Zapirian ship might equal an armada by human standards. Commander Taylor, transferred from Morrison's colony council, approached Parker late one night. "Captain," he said, "we both know what's coming. Even with Thunder Soul, our chances are slim. But if we show the colonists we're ready to fight, it might buy us something more valuable than survival." Parker studied him. "And what's that?" "Hope," Taylor said simply. "Hope. The one resource no empire could ever manufacture." On Haven, life had not stood still. The colonists had dug deep into the soil, raised shelters, planted crops. Children played in meadows under alien skies. But beneath it all was fear, the knowledge that the stars above might soon rain fire. Morrison kept the settlements calm, but every colonist knew the Zapirian ultimatum still ticked down like a silent clock. When Thunder Soul finally appeared in orbit, Haven's settlers gathered in open fields, staring skyward. A streak of silver cut across the heavens. A symbol. A promise. Humanity was not abandoning them. Humanity was fighting for them. But Parker knew symbolism alone would not stop an empire. He ordered the crew to begin orbital drills immediately. Fighters launched and redocked, rail cannons tested their aim against asteroids, shield generators hummed to life. Every system was pushed to the edge, because Parker understood the truth, their enemy would show no mercy. Late one night, Hayes approached him on the observation deck. "Do you ever wonder," she asked, "if we're making a mistake? If resisting them will only bring annihilation?" Parker's eyes never left the stars. "Every living thing resists extinction," he said. "That's not a mistake. That's survival." And with those words, the Thunder Soul crew prepared for a war humanity had never wanted, but could no longer avoid. The day began quietly on Haven. Children ran through fields of alien grass, settlers patched the walls of their homes, and farmers tended crops that had grown from Earth's seeds under an alien sun. For a fleeting moment, life almost felt normal. But then the sky changed. Lieutenant Amy Foster was the first to spot it from the Thunder Soul's sensors, a ripple in the void, a distortion in local space. She leaned over her console, her voice tight. "Captain, we have contacts. Multiple. Exiting faster than light transit." Daniel Parker stood on the bridge, his face calm though his chest tightened. "How many?" Foster's hands trembled. 6. "No, 8. All warships. Zapirian." The bridge fell silent. Humanity's first interstellar war had arrived. The Zapirian fleet descended in perfect formation, their vessels vast and gleaming, carved from alloys humanity had no names for. Each ship radiated quiet menace, weapon systems burning like embers across their hulls. To the colonists on Haven, the ships filled half the sky, a reminder of how small they truly were. And then the transmission came. Cold. Formal. Drenched in the arrogance of empire. "Human intruders. Your defiance violates galactic law. Evacuate immediately or be eradicated. You are primitives. You cannot resist. This is your final warning." On the Thunder Soul, Parker let the words hang in the air. He studied his crew, their faces pale but determined. Then he spoke a single sentence, his voice steady. "Transmit back, we are human. We do not kneel." The message was sent. Humanity's defiance had been declared. The battle began with fire. Zapirian cruisers opened with beams of concentrated plasma, white-hot lances that tore through the upper atmosphere. Parker barked orders. Evasive pattern delta. Shields to maximum. Rail cannons, fire at will. Thunder Soul shuddered as its rail guns unleashed tungsten slugs at near-relativistic speeds. The shot struck a Zapirian frigate, ripping armor from its hull. For the first time, an empire that had ruled unchallenged for millennia bled. Across Haven, colonists watched the skies erupt. Streaks of fire carved the heavens, the soundless fury of war painting the alien twilight. Parents clutched their children. farmers left their tools. Everyone knew, history was being written above them. The Zapirians pressed hard. Their weapons were faster, their shields stronger. One blast shook Thunder Soul so violently that lights died across the bridge, sparks raining from panels. For a moment, Parker thought they might be undone. But then the crew fought back. Commander Taylor rerouted power from the secondary reactors. Dr. Hayes manipulated the shield harmonics, exploiting subtle weaknesses in the enemy's plasma beams. And Foster, young, untested, terrified, guided the ship through maneuvers no simulator had ever dared to attempt. Together, they did the impossible. Thunder Soul held. When the first Zapirian ship fell, the galaxy trembled. A direct hit from Thunder Soul's plasma lance tore through a cruiser's reactor. In a flash of light, the vessel broke apart, scattering debris into Haven's orbit. For the first time in living memory, the Zapirian Empire had lost a warship to what they had dismissed as a primitive species. Across the Empire's domains, whispers spread. On trading outposts, smugglers and merchants asked questions they had never dared before. On enslaved worlds, quiet sparks of hope flickered. If humans could wound the Empire, then perhaps the Empire was not immortal. The psychological war had begun. The battle raged for hours. Thunder Soul could not destroy them all, but it did not have to. Every minute the ship endured was a message: humanity will resist. Humanity will endure. Humanity is not prey. At last, the Zapirians broke formation. Their fleet withdrew into faster-than-light transit, vanishing into the void as swiftly as they had come. Haven's skies cleared. The settlers looked upward, breathless. Against all odds, they had survived. Parker stood on the bridge, battered and bloodied, but unbroken. "Status?" he asked. Foster exhaled, tears in her eyes. "Shields at 12%. Hull damage across 30 sections. Casualties light. But Captain, we're still here." The crew sat in silence, absorbing the truth. They had stared into the abyss of annihilation, and the abyss had blinked. Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. The Zapirian Empire had been bloodied. The story of Haven became a rallying cry, uniting fractured nations under a single truth: humanity was no longer just a species of Earth. They were a people of the stars. Admiral Brooks addressed the Defense Council. "They will return. In greater numbers. And next time, we may not survive. But today, we have proven something far greater. We have shown the galaxy that humans are not a footnote in someone else's history. We are authors of our own." Yet far from Earth, in the deep void between stars, other eyes watched. The Harari, an ancient, neutral race, recorded the battle in silence. For centuries they had observed, intervening in nothing. But now, they spoke among themselves. "The humans awaken too quickly," one elder said. "They bleed the Empire. They draw attention." Another voice, older still, replied. "It is not the Empire they should fear. It is the architects. And when the architects return, neither humans nor Zapirians will matter." The Council of the Harari fell silent. The future was no longer the quiet one they had foreseen. Humanity's defiance had shifted the currents of destiny. On Haven, Captain Parker stood alone on the observation deck. The stars stretched before him, endless and cold. He knew the Zapirians would come again. He knew the war had only begun. But he also knew something else, something that filled him with quiet, unshakable conviction. The galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had been called primitive. They had been told to kneel. And yet, with one ship, one world, and one refusal to surrender, they had changed everything. Parker whispered to himself, a vow meant only for the stars. "We are human. We endure. And no empire will erase us." Above him, the Thunder Soul drifted in silence, a scarred but unbroken sentinel. A symbol. A promise. And far beyond, in the darkness between galaxies, something older stirred, the architects, patient and watchful, waiting for the moment to reveal themselves. Humanity's fight had just begun.